History's most famous war story bypasses the usual focus on tactics and troop movements. Homer centers on the destructive power of a single human emotion. Nearly 3,000 years ago, an ancient Greek poet named Homer composed this story. In the 8th century BC, history was preserved through the songs of traveling performers known as bards, who memorized enormous epic poems to keep them alive for audiences. The Iliad is the foundational text of Western literature, but reveals a structural anomaly. While the Greeks laid siege to Troy for 10 years, Homer ignores that vast timeline. The entire epic spans only a few tense weeks during the final year. Homer deliberately compressed the timeline of the Trojan War to prove a point. The ultimate threat to an army is the volatile internal psychology of its own greatest hero. To understand this, we have to look at the battlefield. For a decade, a massive coalition of Greek kings had been camped outside the towering stone walls of Troy, fighting a brutal war to reclaim a Spartan queen named Helen. The Greek forces relied heavily on Achilles. He was faster and stronger than any other soldier, an invincible weapon in combat. But Achilles carried a severe vulnerability: overwhelming, blinding pride. That pride is weaponized by his own commander. The leader of the Greek army, Agamemnon, publicly humiliates Achilles by using his authority to seize Achilles' captive prize, a young woman named Briseis, right in front of the troops. Achilles retaliates in a way that shocks the camp. He drops his weapons and simply refuses to fight. He retreats to his tents and watches his own allies fall to the Trojans, calculating that his absence will prove exactly how much the army needs him. One man's wounded ego creates an immediate, deadly vacuum on the front lines. The entire tactical advantage of the Greek Empire collapses because of pride. Across the blood-soaked plains, a different kind of leader steps into that vacuum. Prince Hector is the supreme commander of the Trojan forces, and he serves as the exact opposite of Achilles. While Achilles fights for personal glory, Hector is driven by an absolute sense of civic duty. He fights to protect his wife, his infant son, and the citizens trapped inside the city walls. With Achilles refusing to leave his tent, the Greek lines rapidly crumble. Hector's forces push forward aggressively, driving the Greeks back to their ships and bringing them to the brink of defeat. Watching this disaster unfold is Achilles' closest companion, Patroclus. Desperate to save the Greek fleet from burning, Patroclus borrows Achilles' iconic armor. He rides out into the chaos to bluff the Trojans into thinking their invincible nightmare has returned. The bluff initially works, scattering the Trojan ranks. But Patroclus pushes too far and runs directly into Prince Hector. In the resulting combat, Hector strikes Patroclus down, killing him. The collateral damage of Achilles' stubborn pride is the life of the person he cared about most. His deliberate inaction in the face of duty carries a catastrophic, irreversible cost. When the news of Patroclus reaches the tents, Achilles shatters. His wounded pride mutates into a cold, all-consuming drive for vengeance. He storms back onto the battlefield to exact his revenge. He slaughters Trojan soldiers with such intensity that the local river clogs with bodies and overflows its banks with blood. The carnage leads him to the gates of Troy. There, Achilles, the divine warrior of the Greeks, finally meets Hector, the mortal champion of the Trojans. The duel is swift and brutal. Achilles drives his spear through Hector's neck, killing the prince and leaving the city of Troy defenseless. Winning the duel brings Achilles no relief. Consumed by anger, he ties Hector's corpse to the back of his chariot and drags it through the dirt, a desecration that proves how unchecked rage strips a victor of their own humanity. He returns Hector's body and agrees to pause the fighting so his bitter enemy can have the dignity to mourn their fallen hero. This intimate exchange explains why Homer's manuscript has commanded our attention for almost 3,000 years. The Iliad outlasted the Bronze Age as a timeless warning about the self-destructive gravity of human pride. The most powerful moment in this epic of war is a quiet, radical act of forgiveness.